there, it's Popp with another episode from the Lair. I want to apologize for the video with the rant. I was talking about yelling at my kids and shit. I had my girls all week, so I didn't get a chance to film a Lair episode, so we stuck that one in there. And for you guys out there who are wondering where all my weapons were, if you checked like the earlier Lair episodes, I do pull them down every 6 months and oil them and sharpen the ones that have functional edges, and go over them with steel wool, make sure I knock off on any rust and so forth, because I don't want my shit to be fucked up, because in case I gotta take it to upside somebody's head, I don't want to fuck them up with a dirty weapon. That's just rude. Alright, so I'm gonna have a couple repo stories here today. I was going through some of the better stories I had. A lot of them are mundane. You just walk up, take the car, have the key, take the car, drive off. I mean, you do it so much, they just kind of all blend together. But there's a couple dozen stories in there that kind of stick out. And this particular one, I've been doing the job for about 18 months. And we had got, a lot of the usual stuff, cars, a couple vans, Jeeps and stuff. Every now and again, there would be like a repo ticket for like a truck or a bigger type vehicle, boats and stuff. Most of those required special equipment, and I really wasn't brought in on those. But on this particular night, I was. We had received a pink sheet for repo for a catering truck. Yeah, a catering truck. So it was basically a roach coach. And it wasn't like the standard ones that you see that are put onto a pickup truck kind of setup, where you have the ice bins on the side and so forth. This was an actual truck, like a UPS kind of vehicle with a semi-kitchen inside and coolers, the whole deal. It was a pretty good setup, and we actually followed this joker around for about 7 goddamn hours. He was selling sandwiches and hot dogs and whatever just outside Tiger Stadium. We followed him there. We followed him through Greektown. He made a couple stops. He had like a whole route, and he was doing really good business, so I don't know why the fuck he wasn't paying his bills. But that's not for me to decide. The guy I was working for got the pink sheet, and I was working that night, and we had another guy with us, but he got sent out to do a couple of other. I think he was getting 2 Cadillacs that night. So we sat up on this guy, and of course we had the key. We had bolt cutters because we noticed that he did put a lock around the steering wheel, and we checked that out when he actually went into one of the stores to take a piss. We went out there and scoped it real quick because we were going to take it right there on the street. But he had locked it, basically it was before the club was around, and the chain through the steering wheel and around the brake pad or brake pedal and whatever. So we called it off. He rolled into his residence just a little after midnight. It's like 12:30. And yeah, he chained it, he pulled his car in behind it in his driveway, which is really not an impediment at all, because, we are used to stealing cars. So parking a car in front of a truck that we're going to steal is, at most, it's maybe a minute and a half delay. So yeah, like we got in there, we used to make a lot of our own tools because every car is different. But those election signs, they have that thick 1/4-inch wire in there. Like a lot of times we would bend up what we needed right on the spot, put a wedge in the door frame and pull it back just about 1/4 of an inch, go in there and push the unlock button or whatever we had to do. So and all we did was just push it in neutral and push it down the driveway and then push it off to the side. It didn't really take any time at all. Maybe about 90 seconds. We had the bolt cutters, we cut the chain, started the truck, and the guy I was working for actually drove the truck off, and I followed in his chase vehicle because he had a full van. I used to have a hydraulic jack in the back for short tows. And then you had the racks of tools that you use and stuff like that. It was a really professional setup. Good guy. And we drove it to the repo yard, and it was fucking weird because we didn't know what to do because it had all this fucking food in it. Okay? And the guy owed like, it was like $6,800 on it. I think it was like 5 or 6 months in the hole on this thing. And he had taken all the money out of it, so that wasn't an issue. But I remember asking him, I'm like, dude, what are we going to do with all this fucking food? I mean, we have nowhere to fucking put it. We couldn't put it in bags because it's going to spoil. It was in the yard, so he's just like, I don't care, Pop. Just fucking pull up your car and fill a trunk, man. Just fucking go to town. This shit's going to go bad anyway. The guy's not going to, he's not going to pay for this fucking truck, so... if we don't take it out now, it's in 5 days, it's all going to be bad, and it's going to be stinking, and we'll have to take it out anyway. So I'm like, roger that. And I remember I had like 36 submarine sandwiches, Gatorade, Pepsis, Cokes, just boxes and boxes of fucking food. And it was all that usual gut rot stuff, cases of candy bars and whatever. I got about a little over half of the food. Now, the other guy that worked for him came in about an hour and a half later, and he got his share. And the guy I worked for took like some Snicker bars and some beers and stuff, and that was it. And sure as shit, the guy did not come in and pay for the truck or any of that stuff. So they wound up selling that truck on auction. I wasn't there that day, so I don't know what it went for. But it was a good call on his part, and plus I had free food. I ate like a fucking pig for like 2 weeks for basically free. So thanks to that guy for not paying his bills. What are you gonna do? I mean, technically, was it stealing? No, it was perishable. We had nowhere to put it. Wasn't our fault he didn't pay his bills. So what are you gonna do? All right, the second one was very similar to that. What am I at here? 7 minutes. All right, second story. Now this, I don't remember the time frame on this other than it did happen after the catering truck debacle. And this was an ice cream truck. Complete with the stupid fucking music and the fucking clown face and all that same ass shit. And I don't know what it was with these guys. They thought like this chain and lock thing was going to stop people, but it was pretty close to the same thing. Except this guy parked it out in front of his house, didn't even block it in, and he was just under 2 G's in the hole on this thing. And we did the same thing, cut it. He drove the truck away. We're doing like 50 down 8 Mile, and he turned on the ice cream fucking music. It's like 1:30 in the morning, and I remember he like pulls up to a light right next to this other car, and their windows were down. And the people on the other side of the ice cream truck got so creeped out, they put their car in reverse and backed up about 20 feet so they didn't have to be next to the ice cream truck at 1:30 in the morning with this psycho ice cream music going on. Dude, that shit was fucking hilarious. And it was more of the same. I had a bazillion fucking boxes of ice cream. I fucking stuffed my freezer full of it. Ate that shit for a long time because that stuff tastes, one, it was good and it keeps for a long time in the freezer. But this guy did come in like 2 weeks later and like paid the balance that he owed. Made the account current and then got the vehicle back, and then he bitched about the ice cream, but the bank was like, too bad, so sad. It's a perishable item, and once it's repoed, it's thrown away. So he had to take it on the chin for his inventory. Again, I'm just a guy I just worked the whole deal. Now for the catering truck, I think I was on site for like 8 hours for that one. I got like, I think I paid $250 for that vehicle. And the ice cream truck, I got like $150. So, it was the amount you got was how much was owed, and whatever the contract repo agreement was, and it is what it is. So, I mean, it was a pretty good deal. I made about, So I worked anywhere from 2 to 6 days a month, and I would make between $800 to $2,000. And then on the process server side, you know, I worked probably 3 days a week, and I made about $800 to $1,200 a month on that. You know, that's pretty good money, you know, while you're going to college, and you know, you don't really have a lot of overhead because I was living at home, you know. And then I would make somewhere between $200 and $600 a month fighting, you know, which was easy money. Plus, it was a great workout. Okay, now here's one that was kind of creepy, and we had got a repo pink sheet on a Cadillac. Okay, this had all the options. It was tricked out. You know, you could tell by the codes and the VIN number of all the options it has. And I remember, like, the guy I was working for, he looked at it and he's like, "Ah, yeah, this is probably belonging to a pimp. This could be a bad one." And I was like, "Holy shit!" You know, I'm like, "Okay, I didn't know pimps bought brand new cars, but apparently it's a very lucrative business. So if you guys thinking to get into it, maybe you should. I don't know." So, you know, we followed the guy around, you know, and I remember the night before I worked for him the night before we did it, and we followed him around for like 2 or 3 hours, and then we went around and we, you know, pinched. I think I got 4 cars the first night, and then the second night I got 1 other car. Then I went on the pimp ride. Now, I was just there pulling security because it was a 2-person job, because it was considered, you know, high risk. So the guy I was working for, he had his tool bag, you know, and I was just basically, you know, pulling Overwatch for him. And I saw him do the whole deal. I mean, he was really good at his craft. I mean, I think it took him 2 minutes. And, you know, the way it works is you get like a dent puller, and then they have this special screw, and you screw it into the ignition. And then, you know, he used to use liquid nitrogen, and he would put it on the column. It would take about 30 seconds to a minute for it to get cold enough. Then he would just rip the entire, you know, ignition right out of the column, and then he would just turn it over the screwdriver or a pair of needle nose pliers. And that's what he did. And it's hard to believe, but the car wasn't even fucking locked. It's like the guy didn't even fucking care. You know, and there was a bunch of crazy ass shit in there, because I remember, like, he rolled it down, he started it and rolled it down the driveway, and I had already started going down the block in his chase vehicle. And as soon as he pulled away, there was like, I don't know, 50 goddamn people running out of the house, you know, and I thought they were going to start shooting at him and shit. And he just took off like a bat out of hell. And he blew past me, and I couldn't even keep up with him. And then we linked up back at the repo yard, and we're going through the vehicle, and we found some crazy ass shit. And I literally from underneath the seat was a fucking wad of cash like this. It probably $5,000 to $8,000 fucking dollars in a big ass fucking roll. Why he didn't use that cash to pay his note off or pay it down is fucking beyond me. I have no idea. There was 2 guns in the car. There was drugs. There was cocaine, crack, marijuana, but I think that was just personal use stuff because it was in the ashtray. I had a crazy ass sound system in it, like, you know, it was unbelievable. Now, you know, I remember I pulled the guns out, and the guy I worked for was like, "Hey, fuck that." You know, he took the guns, wiped them off, put them in a fucking bag. You don't want to fuck with guns, especially if they come from a fucking pimp vehicle, because you get your fingerprints on those, and next thing you know, they're looking you up for fucking some kind of killing or some shit that you had nothing to do with. So he wiped them off. He sprayed them with Lysol because that breaks down all the DNA on there. I don't think that's why he did it. I think he just sprayed it on there because it breaks up the oil. But you know, in the future, if you want to, you know, erase your DNA signatures in the oil on your fingers, you spray it with Lysol. Put them in a bag. He told me he threw them in a mailbox down the street from the repo yard, and then, you know, once the mail handler finds the guns, calls the cops come and they hand it off to the ATF. Then the ATF runs the numbers and blah blah blah. You know, the cash. He took the cash and he just peeled off maybe a half an inch of cash and just gave it to me. and it was like $1,700. It was a very good night for me. You know, the drugs and stuff, I didn't ask. I'm just like, I don't want to know. I'm not involved in that shit. So he's like, yeah, no, you're a health nut. You always work out and blah, blah, blah. But that was a pretty good night. And if he had not, I really think if he had not pulled away as fast as he did, they probably would have shot him. Because, you know, from what I saw, they didn't open fire, but they had guns out, like they were going to start shooting. And they were probably deciding if it was worth it because of the distance he was away from them. You know, that could have been fucking tragic for him. And for me, because I would have been out of a fucking job. So I'm going to go through these stories as I come up with them. And then I'm going to go through one of these. I'm going to talk about all the tools of the trade and shit like that they use. Because there's really a lot of thought that goes into this. And, you know, one of the main reasons I was successful in that particular line of work is I thought like the guy I was working for, you know, because he'd been doing it for a long time, and I had a military mindset. And I was all about rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. You know, I would, you know, basically look at the vehicle that we were doing, go out to the yard, find one that was similar, you know, and know exactly where the ignition was, you know, the height of the doors, all that other stuff, so I could find the keyholes and stuff in the pitch black, because you don't want to be fucking around with shit like that. You certainly don't want to turn on a white light when you're trying to steal shit, because that's how you get shot. Yeah, that's another story. Of course, I was never hit. I was shot at a couple times. Guns pulled on me a few times, but I lucked out. Anyway, that's me. I'm going to upload this, and I will be out of town the 16th through the 21st, taking my kids on a road trip. For those of you that didn't know this, when I was stationed in New York, I came home twice a month to see my kids for 5 years. And that was a 571-mile one-way drive. And I'm going to take my kids on that drive so they can feel the pain just one time. We're going to go out there, hang out for 3 days, turn around and come right back, because that's what I did for 5 years. And I also used my GoPro, the same one I'm filming here with, and I filmed a documentary that we got to cut together called Operation 10 Horizons. So, you know, there's a long story behind that, which I'll discuss in the documentary when and if we ever get it done. So I'll talk to you later, gentlemen. You have a good night.